Hey everyone! Today, we are going to learn how to decode the secret language of pop culture. We're talking about the messages, the values, and the really powerful ideas that are hiding in plain sight in all the stuff you love, your favorite movies, TV shows, and comics. So to get us started, let's kick off with a question that seems pretty simple, but the answer? It's actually way more complex. Why on earth does Batman's suit keep changing? Now, you might think it's just, updating the style for a new generation, but the real reason tells us this incredible story about our own changing world. Okay, let's just dive right into this timeline. I mean, look at this evolution. Back in the 60s, you've got Adam West in this soft, almost silly spandex suit. It was campy, it was fun, and it totally reflected the counterculture vibe of the time. Then, bam, 1989 hits, and Michael Keaton is wearing this hard, all-black body armor. Way more serious. Then the 90s. Well, the 90s brought us Joel Schumacher's, let's just call them flamboyant suits. They looked more like something a Greek god would wear than practical armor. And then after 2000, Christian Bale's suit is basically military-grade Kevlar. Every single one of these changes is a clue, a little snapshot of the culture that made it. So how do we actually read these clues? Well, that's what we're here to do. We're going to build a cultural detectives toolkit. And with these tools, I promise you'll be able to solve mysteries like the Batsuit and start seeing the world around you in a whole new way. All right, tool number one is the magnifying glass. This is all about learning to see two different kinds of meaning. There's the explicit meaning, that's the obvious, surface level stuff. And then there's the implicit meaning, the hidden stuff that's bubbling just underneath. So the cultural theorist Raymond Williams put it perfectly. The whole point of cultural analysis is to clarify both of those meanings. So the explicit message is what something says out loud. A superhero suit is armor. Simple. But the implicit message, that's what the armor suggests about the society that dreamed it up. And that, my friends, is where the real detective work starts. Think about it like this. You show up to a party with a bottle of 25-year-old cognac. Explicitly, you brought drinks. Great. But implicitly, you're signaling something about sophistication, right? High culture. Now, show up with a six-pack of PBR. It's still drinks, but it sends a totally different, more lowbrow message. Pop culture is doing this all the time, sending these little implicit signals about what we value. Okay, next up in our toolkit, the decoder ring. This is the tool that helps us understand how a simple object like the Batsuit can suddenly start carrying this huge, powerful cultural message, what the theorist Roland Barthes called a myth. It all starts with a pretty simple concept from a linguist named Ferdinand de Saussure. He said a sign has two parts. You've got the signifier, that's the word or the image, like the letters T-R-E-E. And then you have the signified, which is the actual concept of a tree in your head. Put them together, and you get a sign. Makes sense, right? But here is where it gets really cool. Barthes said, hold on, there's a second level to this. That first level sign, our Kevlar armor, it then becomes a signifier for a whole new second level meaning. And suddenly, that suit isn't just armor anymore. It's a symbol, a myth, that connotes a whole universe of cultural ideas, like post-9/11 anxiety about terrorism and national security. And with that tool, we can finally solve our Batsuit mystery. The playful 60s suit, it connotes a campy, less serious countercultural vibe. The hard plastic 80s suit, that signifies a huge cultural shift towards serious, tech-driven combat. The 90s suit, with its focus on perfect anatomy, suggests a culture that valued looks over function. And that military-grade 2000s suit is just screaming with a nation's anxieties about terrorism. Okay, for our final tool, we have the case file. This helps us realize that these cultural myths, they're not just random, they all connect to a bigger, often invisible system of beliefs that shapes our entire society. And the name for that system is ideology. Now, as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels famously wrote, the dominant ideas in any society usually reflect the interests of the most powerful groups. Now, this doesn't mean there's some secret conspiracy going on. It's simpler than that. It just means that the worldview of the people in charge often becomes the common sense for everybody else. Ideology isn't really about which political party you vote for. It's deeper than that. It's the unconscious framework that makes certain things just feel normal or natural. It's like the water we swim in. It's the set of assumptions that makes us ask, which cool suit does the king wear? Instead of asking, wait, why do we even have a king? So how does this actually work? The philosopher Louis Althusser said the state maintains control in two key ways. First, there's the repressive state apparatus. Think police, military, courts. They control through force. But what's way, way more effective is the ideological state apparatus. These are institutions like the media, schools, even the family. They shape how we think and see the world, getting us to basically agree to the system all on our own. A perfect case study for this is the massive 1980s TV show Dallas. When researchers actually studied its audience, they found something really interesting. Viewers knew the show wasn't high culture. They totally saw it as what they called a bad object, a guilty pleasure. But here's the thing. People are not just passive sponges. This study showed that viewers were actively negotiating with the show. They justify watching it by saying things like, "Oh, I'm just watching to make fun of the characters," or "I'm watching it critically." What this did was create an emotional distance. It was their way of proving to themselves and everyone else that they weren't just dumb consumers mindlessly soaking up the message. So, let's pull it all together. Let's recap your new toolkit. With these 3 tools, you are now officially equipped to be a cultural detective and, honestly, to see your world in a fundamentally different way. So, this is what you should take away from all this. First, always use your magnifying glass to look for those implicit, hidden meanings right below the surface. Second, use your decoder ring to figure out how everyday things become these powerful cultural myths. And third, use your case file to connect those myths to the bigger picture, the ideology that's shaping all of our worlds. And that brings us to one last question, a little investigation for you to take on your own. Now that you have the tools, what myths are your favorite movies, TV shows, and video games selling you?